Hello everybody and welcome back to another video here. The Canadiens pull off another big win here on the second of a back-to-back. I feel like the Canadiens haven't played that many back-to-backs recently, but this is one that, they were forced into against a team that is, absolutely desperate for points in the standings, and they were able to pull off yet another regulation win here, and that is just a massive victory for the Canadiens here to win 3-2 over the Ottawa Senators here. And again, like it's I can't explain enough how important getting points is, especially against Atlantic Division opponents. The Ottawa Senators are a team that made the playoffs last season. They definitely proved that, they're a solid team in this one. They definitely pushed us to the limit, much like the Toronto Maple Leafs did at times in yesterday's game too. But to get that, big 4-point win, if you will, those 2-point separation that occurs against them here in this game is definitely huge. It pushes us up to, tying Tampa Bay with a game. They have a game in hand on us at this point, but, we are tied with them at 82 apiece there. Obviously, Buffalo has kind of run away with things in the standings. They're at 86 points, but only 4 points away from them at this point. So anything is possible, both up and down for the Canadiens. But getting this win, it is another 2 points. It was a 4-point stretch in the last 24 hours or so. Is a big deal for the Canadiens there, and is exactly what you want to see, giving us some separation over the guys that are behind us in the standings right now. We have a 3-point lead on Detroit as of this point, with still a game in hand here on them. They've got 65 games played. We got 64. And then Boston, we've got a nice, 4-point gap over them as well. And then anybody outside of the playoffs, we pushed ourselves, in a pretty good position. We got a 6-point lead on Columbus here, which is the only team, even in the same realm at this point. Ottawa, with that loss, has put themselves, kind of at the brink of being eliminated at this point. Obviously, anything's possible with still, 18 games left in the season for them, but at the same time here, it's going to be tough. So a big win for the Canadiens. Obviously, it doesn't really feel like it all the time when we're sitting in a playoff spot. And we have been for a long time here, but I can't overstate the fact that the Canadiens need to find a way to get these points, especially with how good both of these Metro division. Some of those guys have been good, and obviously Atlantic, pretty much every team in the Atlantic is contending in one way or another. Even Toronto isn't necessarily eliminated yet, but again, like it's important to get points wherever we can. It puts us in a great position here, and with that win, I feel like we've definitely secured ourselves as a team that's going to be contending for the cup moving forward. Obviously, we haven't clinched or anything yet. There's still way too many games left for that to be the case, but we definitely put ourselves in a great position there. So going into the game here, we start the game pretty much on the power play. It took 30 or 45 seconds into the game for the Ottawa Senators to start running at our goalie, Jacob Fowler, obviously getting called up this morning and playing in the game. So that was a big change there, and definitely an interesting move by the Canadiens. But obviously the Senators run him in 45 seconds in. They knock him over. It's a goaltender interference penalty. Travis Green of the Ottawa Senators was not thrilled about that call, but I feel like, what are you gonna say? Like you run our goalie. He's pretty much in the crease. Like, I don't know. Like, you can watch the the Nathan MacKinnon suspension, or not suspension, but game misconduct that he had the other day, yesterday. It's the same kind of thing. You run our goalie, you're going to get a penalty for it. Obviously, I don't think that was the one today was going to be a misconduct or anything like that. But at the same time, you ran our goalie over, you're going to get a penalty for it. I don't really know what they're complaining about there. And, we go to work on the power play. It's not perfect. I think there's still some things going on with the power play that I don't love. And obviously, Cole Caulfield out today with the flu doesn't really help our case either on the power play. But, Uri Slafkovsky and Ivan Demidov go to work on this power play here. Nick Suzuki gets an assist as well, but he gives the puck over to Demidov, who just kind of absolutely undresses the defenseman there. And then puts himself pretty much all alone, a nice toe drag move that completely undresses that defenseman, and then he makes a really nice, easy pass over to Slafkovsky, and Slafkovsky could have scored that goal, the pool cue, like it was like right in the area for him. There's no goalie, nobody in the way. Like, again, he could have scored that one with anything there. It was nice and easy for Slafkovsky to just kind of tap that thing in. That's his 24th goal of the season here, so he's continued to push himself further and further this season. Impressive effort from him him there. And then Demidov, obviously, I think he had one of his best games of the season in this one. You definitely lean on him heavy. Without Cole Caulfield in our lineup, he gets his 37th assist of the season on that one. And Nick Suzuki finds a way to get another assist, his 54th assist of the season. So, great work from all of those guys to get ourselves on the board nice and early into this game. And that ended up being very important there as the Ottawa Senators would go back and score, 2 goals to exit the first period up 2-1. The Drake Batherson goal to start things off here. It's just an unfortunate situation. Josh Anderson takes an ill-advised penalty. Obviously, when you're playing the Senators, things get a little bit, heated, and we're trying to, find ways to defend ourselves and all that kind of stuff. But, the power play that they get off of Josh Anderson kind of just being a little bit overzealous with his, physicality is definitely not necessary, especially when, there are some very skilled players on the Ottawa Senators that can make you pay for, taking penalties against them, and that's exactly what happens. Drake Batherson is so wide open from, a pass across from Brady Tkachuk there. He's in a good position there. We just can't cover the pass. Batherson actually, he puts it in the net and then knocks it back out. So he just barely scored it, got it over the line, and then brought it right back out into the into the crease there. So it looked like it wasn't a goal, but definitely did cross the line there. It's a good passing play from them. And again, it's a tough play. I mean, it's tough to defend that once you're in that situation. But I think, in my opinion, just not putting ourselves in that position at all, not taking that penalty there, that was definitely unnecessary, in my opinion, would have helped us out in that situation to not put ourselves, into a tie game situation there. I think that could have been definitely avoided there, but that's the way that went. And then Drake Batherson scores another one. I think that they're giving it to Drake Batherson. I thought it was Tim Stützle who scored, but maybe they're saying that Batherson kind of tipped the Stützle shot. But either way, this is Alexander Carrier just being a little bit lazy, in my opinion. We win a face-off here, and anytime you win a D-zone face-off, that should be just an automatic, we're breaking out, we're getting this puck out of the zone. But, he's got the pressure coming towards him, and he just kind of throws it up the boards. Very similar to what happened with Noah Dobson yesterday. That led to the William Nylander goal yesterday. It's a very similar situation where we win a face-off, and then we just kind of chuck the puck up the wall there. I think that's just kind of a lazy play. It's an ill-advised play. We got to be able to possess the puck. If you're going to throw it up the wall, at least get it high off the glass and out. We don't do either of those things, and it just goes right to the defenseman there, and they start going back downhill. And at that point, because we're throwing the puck up the wall, all of our forwards are kind of already out of the zone or breaking out into the neutral zone there. So everybody's trying to break back into the zone to help on defense, and it's not going to work. Batherson kind of works his way towards the front of the net, and it looked like Stützle, he takes a shot, and I guess it goes off of Batherson, and that's what happens there. That's the goal. So either way, it's just Carrier needs to be smarter there, and then Dobson, yesterday needed to be smarter on that one. It's just something that the whole decor to work on a little bit, just getting that puck out of the zone in a smart way, possessing the puck or whatever, going back behind the net or something like that, where we're not just chucking it back towards the opposing team when we have a position to actually get the puck out of the zone in the first place. So I feel like if we're able to do that a little bit better, we prevent ourselves from being in those positions, and I think that will help us win games down the stretch. But unfortunately, that's not what happens here. It's been a struggle all year long trying to get the puck out of the zone. We definitely get hemmed in more than we should. I think these most recent examples are just that recent examples, but there's a lot of different times where the Canadiens have a chance to get out of the zone, but instead they just kind of chuck it and see if they can kind of beat the defenseman, and it doesn't happen. The defensemen in the NHL are really good, obviously, and they're very capable of keeping the puck in the zone and continuing that offense going if you give them a chance with a loose puck kind of situation. So we have to be a little bit better about creating a breakout and actually kind of getting a possession going outside of the zone as opposed to just chucking it out. And that would have helped us keep the puck out of the zone in that situation. But oh well, what are you gonna do? But yeah, going into the second period, I feel like we definitely were a little bit slow in this entire game. In my opinion, I think there were some times where the Canadiens wish they were a little bit more aggressive, a little bit better. I feel like our defense in general was pretty good. Obviously we only let in those 2 goals in that first period there, so pretty good defensively overall. definitely some things to clean up, and some times where Jacob Fowler had to bail the guys out. And by the way, he played a fantastic game in this one for his first NHL game in nearly 2 months. So definitely impressive work from him there. But either way, I think it took a little bit of time for us to get going in this one as well. The second of a back-to-back against a team who's really trying to get points, it makes sense. But into the second period here. It took pretty much most of the second period for us to find a way. I feel like a lot of, lazy play and all that kind of stuff. And, again, it's fatigue, it's all that kind of stuff. But, fortunately, Alexandre Texier getting back into the lineup, obviously with Cole Caulfield out, he slots right back into that top line. I feel like he had a great game overall. Obviously, he scores a goal, but I feel like he was, all over the place on the puck and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what they do lineup-wise with that in mind. And, obviously considering the fact that Cole Caulfield might take a few more days to get healthy, we'll have to see what happens with our lineup there. But anyway, going to the goal here, he gets a nice play here. The puck gets into the zone. He's kind of fighting down, below the goal line. Hudson finds him, and Texier is able to kind of, do a nice little wraparound. He doesn't quite tuck it in on the wraparound, but it goes, through the crease and kind of bounces off of Allmark's legs there. I'm not convinced that, Texier was actually the goal scorer on that one. It might have ended up being Struble there, who poked it in at the last second to put that in the net. But as of now, the NHL app is giving this goal to Alexandre Texier, and it's his 8th of the season there. And either way, whether he scored or not, it's a great play by him, to take the puck to the net and try to see if we can get some chances going, and it works out well for him. And as of now, it's his 8th goal of the season. Hudson gets his 55th assist of the year here, so he's continued to be absolutely incredible. And then Jake Evans gets his 10th assist of the season on that one as well. So just great work by all of them. Obviously, to continue to put pucks on the net and continue to challenge a goaltender who hasn't been completely solid all year round either, and Allmark there. So it was good to see, especially Texier, who's been out of the lineup for a while, get himself on the score sheet, and definitely makes Martin St. Louis' job a little bit harder going down the stretch here as to whether or not they want to play him. And I think it kind of puts, some a rest to some of the questioning on, Kent Hughes signing Texier in the first place. I feel like people are freaking out a lot about whether or not, signing Texier was a mistake. But in my opinion, I feel like, he's still a very capable player. He scored tonight. If he didn't score tonight, we wouldn't have won this game. So there's that. And also, like, it's $2.5 million for, I think it was 2 years or something like that. I feel like that's not a crazy loss by any means. Even if Texier didn't end up playing, I feel like that's not. I feel like the audition, at the very least, that he's given to the rest of the league is worth getting a trade out of him or something like that. I feel like he's done enough to to where even if we didn't want to play him moving forward, we could trade him and get something going with him. But as of right now, I'm happy to see him in the lineup, and he obviously makes a big impact tonight. So I feel like at least for now, it's kind of quieted those conversations a little bit. And yeah, he ties the game up in the second period, and it kind of like sparks the team a little bit as well. I feel like we got a little bit more offensive, a little bit more pep in our step afterwards, and I feel like that's exactly what you need from a role player like Texier in that situation. So, and then moving into the third period, more of the same, just trying to chip it back and forth. It was a very back and forth game, very physical game, lots of chances either way. Obviously Jacob Fowler, going back to that Texier goal. Just before that, he made some big saves on a breakaway there, to eventually set up the Texier goal. So Jacob Fowler played an absolutely fantastic game coming back into the lineup, and then into the third period, just continue to play nice is Newhook, Demidov, and Kapanen. I think that line has kind of come into their own a little bit there. Newhook, obviously, I've talked about it before about how impactful he is as a member of this team, and what he can do in our lineup here. And I think he proved that again in this game. He had a nice, just the legs that he's got, and the ability to kind of drive the play a little bit definitely sets up this goal here. But in general, I feel like they've kind of come into their own, and Newhook has kind of been a nice substitution for Slavkovsky. Obviously, not as good as Slavkovsky is, and not as good as what that line could have been overall. But I think that he's had a nice substitution here, and he has a big impact in this goal. Gouli gets it up to Newhook as he kind of drives through the neutral zone, and he's using his speed. He's getting in there. He's forcing the defense back. He gets a nice shot on net. Allmark makes the save, but he doesn't really know where the puck is. He doesn't know that, he's leaked out a rebound onto his right side. And Demidov, doing a nice job. He's just driving the net there. He finds that rebound and bangs it home. And it ends up being a game-winning goal for Demidov. It's his 14th goal of the season. Newhook gets his 10th assist of the season, and Gooley his 6th assist of the season. So, Demidov, I feel like he, is one of the best players in this game here. I feel like Jacob Fowler definitely deserves the first star that he got in this game, but in terms of players there, it's good to see, Demidov making a big impact. And obviously, with a goal and assist in this one, if we don't have Demidov in our lineup, we're not winning this game. So good to see him get that game-winning goal. He hasn't been scoring too many goals recently, so it's good to see him, in that position to have a big impact. And especially with Cole Caulfield out of our lineup, seeing somebody step up offensively and get the pucks into the net there, it's really good to see our rookie, superstar Ivan Demidov getting that stuff done. So again, very, very, very nice there. And yeah, that ended up being the game-winning goal. The Habs survive another game where, we're up a goal with the net goalie pulled, at the end of the game, when we survive, we end up winning in a one-goal game situation. I think Suzuki and Slavkovsky both had chances at the empty net well before the end of the game there, but some good blocks by the Ottawa players there prevent that from going in. But we were able to hold it off. Jacob Fowler made some amazing saves in the dying seconds of this game to keep it a one-goal lead for the Canadiens, and eventually they come away with that win at the end. So again, I think Jacob Fowler easily the number one star here, and what a decision made by Martin St. Louis and Kent Hughes and all of those guys to pull him up at this moment to get him a chance to get these 2 points here. And it seems kind of silly, obviously, because there's still many games left in this season overall. But this, as I said at the beginning of this video, I feel like this win is a lot more important than it looks. It puts us at a 9-point difference between us and Ottawa. It puts us in a really nice position over anybody not in the playoffs at the moment. In a lot of ways, I feel like this has definitely clinched us at least a really good chance at getting into the playoffs this season. So I think it's a really good decision to pull Fowler up into the play there and give him a chance to go win. It's a hockey game, and he does exactly that, at the end of the day. So, again, a very, very nice situation there. It'll be interesting to see what happens going forward as far as, whether or not Demidov, Fowler is going to stay on the lineup. If, Montembeault is going to play again, from now until the end of the season here. So that'll be pretty interesting to see. Obviously, I think that it was a smart decision, especially after the last game that Montembeault played. I think it was a smart move to not play him in this one in a situation where we needed to get a win. And I feel bad for the guy. I still, really respect what Montembeault has done over his time with the Montreal Canadiens here, but it's very clear to me at this point that he's at the very least not reliable in a big time game situation here, and it makes perfect sense to go to a young gun like Jacob Fowler, who's been killing it in the minors. So with that being said, I feel like that was a smart decision, and it'll be interesting to see what goes on going forward. I feel like they should keep him and go with him and Dobesh for the remainder of the season here. Maybe even, I know they can't fully send Montembeault back down to the minors, but at least sending him on a conditioning stint to, see if he can, get his mojo back a little bit, and then we'll have to make a decision again going into the playoffs. But, at least for now, I feel like you got to go with the hot hands, and Dobesh and Fowler seem to be those guys in this situation. So it all remains to be seen as to what actually happens there, but that's my take, and we'll see what happens here. So that is all I got for this one. Obviously a big win, as I keep saying. It puts us in a great position standings wise moving forward. Our next game here against the San Jose Sharks is a good game to get some revenge over a team that got the better of us in our last game here. So yeah, that is all I've got for this one. I will see you after a big 2 points and a win over San Jose on Saturday.